From the smallest nonprofit to the biggest multinational corporation, businesses rely on their boards of directors for oversight and strategic support. Professor Ron Masulis of the Australian School of Business has done extensive research on what makes some boards more effective than others. The answer, he says, is multifaceted.
What makes for a good board and what makes for a good director? How does board composition affect firm performance and major firm actions? Does board independence or a larger percentage of independent directors benefit shareholders? What determines board size and how does that affect firm performance? And how is board composition actually determined?
One area that he says is just starting to get close attention is the question of what, primarily, are directors doing? One of his recent studies found that mostly they monitor and supervise.
Approximately 2/3 of the issues the board discusses are supervisory in nature, but more importantly, generally they're only offered one single option on 99% of the issues that they are voting on, and they only disagree with the CEO about 2.5% of the time.
He concedes this particular study did not draw from a huge sample, but he says it nonetheless gives some indication of how directors allocate their time. Another important line of inquiry is what kind of directors are most valuable to a firm's performance. Recent findings indicate that venture capitalists with bold personalities and bold ideas can have a positive influence.
Firms appointing VC directors tend to increase their R&D intensity after the appointment. They tend to increase their patent awards, their patent citations. They tend to have more acquisitions of VC-backed firms, and these acquisitions tend to be more profitable after the appointment of these directors.
That's not to say VCs are the answer to every board's problems, but Masulis told Think Business there are some general characteristics a company can look for when recruiting directors.
There's a checklist of characteristics of directors and boards that I was basically suggesting that people consider based on a wide array of recent research. But it involves incentives such as independence. It involves their experience, their expertise. Also is a question of what types of other incentives besides financial incentives they may have.
Masulis says his own recent work has focused on the effects of mandated changes on board performance, specifically regulations on the number of independent directors on boards and nominating committees. He expects these changes will raise board sensitivity regarding when to fire the CEO.
As the firm's performance deteriorates, how sensitive is the board in deciding when to terminate that executive? This is, we think, a very important board decision, one of the most important that a board will ever make, and it's particularly informative about how carefully the board is monitoring the operations of the firm.
What, though, about studies of gender diversity and women on boards? Masulis says the effects of mandated gender diversity so far are not encouraging, as corporations are recruiting from a limited pool of candidates.
So I think in the short run, it's not surprising that we're not seeing too much of a positive impact. I think you need to first develop a supply of experienced and talented executives who can meet that role.
Indeed, Masulis says there's evidence of an overall shortage of truly independent qualified directors willing to do the job.
These are people that are very busy, very well qualified, and being able to recruit them is not necessarily that easy because these jobs have become more and more demanding over time. And the expectations of how much time and energy a director has to commit to the position has been rising fairly rapidly.
So far, though, the evidence of a dearth of director talent is just anecdotal, giving Masulis and like-minded researchers one more avenue of investigation. For NUS Business School, I'm Katie Sargent.